Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 2 of the Loner Deck Battles Fusion Festival Edition. Okay, before I look at the second Loner deck and do a deck analysis of that, I'm going to show you my true Draco deck that I came up with the help of, actually, I didn't really come up with it. I just borrowed it off of someone else's deck list. It's doing pretty well. And of course, like, true Dracos can be played a number of different ways, but this is an example deck list. So I'll just go through it real quick. Won't talk about any of the cards because I do want to make sure I have time for the actual Loner deck. But I want to show you this for those who want to build a cheap deck that you know is going to do well. I just want to give you something to help you out. So, show you this. Yeah, and then if you want to look at a card further, you can always feel free to pause. So there's the deck list. In this, so a few changes I had to make because they were banned were you can't play Imperial Order. I'm pretty sure you could play Imperial Order in the last festival, but you can in this festival. And you also, skill drain is now limited. In the last festival it was at 3. Okay. That's a few changes. But I think a positive change, I think Par Desires is unlimited. I think in the last festival, I could be wrong, it was banned, but it's unlimited now. So that's kind of cool. And of course you could change, you don't need to play Terraform. You could always change it out for like maybe an extra, like maybe True King's Return could be, but I just decided to go for this because it looked kind of cool. Anyway, and of course the songs you could probably replace with more True Draco cards. Yeah, like you could replace a few of the songs and stuff with either the spells, traps, or even the few more monsters like the, here it is, the Drayeth plus maybe like the Metaltron. Like get rid of 3 of these for 3 Drayeth, or like probably like 2 Song Strikes to get in all the Song Strikes to get yourself the True Draco Heritage, Disciples, and True King's Return. One more copy of that. And then the 3 Psalm Judgments you can replace with Drayeth. And then the Terraforming you could replace with Metaltron. So yeah, to make it a little bit cheaper. So yeah, but there's that. I already had the Solemns from the time I built Paleozoic, so I was fine with that. It was basically free putting in for me. But I did have to craft the Terraforming, which isn't like super bad because Terraforming can be useful in other decks as well. So if I ever play a different field spell deck or something, and now I have Terraforming. So yeah, that's good. Anyway, I just wanted to go through that real quick. Okay. Because I know not everyone's going to have time to finish my Loner deck battles before they start playing, so I just want to help you out a little bit. Okay, so the next Loner deck is the Heart of a Sky. It's called the Heart of a Sky with Perse Clouds. So it's a Fluffal deck basically, so that's cool. Deck description: this deck aims to fusion summon by using Fluffal and Edging monsters. Some of the Fluffal monsters, such as Fluffal Dolphin, have effects that can be activated sent to the graveyard's fusion summoning material. If you take advantage of this, you'll have a bunch of fusion monsters showing up on the field in no time. Okay, so let's go through these cards and see what kind of effects they have. I'm a little familiar with Fluffals because I tried the deck in real life, so I'm a little more familiar with this deck. I never got too serious with Fluffals, but I do understand a lot of the cards. So, Fluffal Cat. So this one allows you to recycle a polymerization from your graveyard when used as a fusion material. The cool thing about Fluffal Cat is that if you use a polymerization, you can add that same polymerization back to your hand if you're using this card as a fusion material. Because the polymerization is sent to the graveyard first before you go into the fusion summoning. At least I believe that's how it works. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But it has to be specifically polymerization. And then Fluffal Rabbit. This is kind of the same thing as Fluffal Cat, but instead of recycling a polymerization, you recycle either an Edgem Sabers or a Fluffal monster in the graveyard. And just like Fluffal Cat, I believe, I could be wrong, because like they might both be sent to the graveyard at the same time, but I believe you can target the other fusion material if it was a Fluffal or Edgem Sabers, that same one, as long as it's not Fluffal Rabbit, and like add that back to your hand. So, like for example, you could use Fluffal Cat and Fluffal Rabbit as fusion materials, and then use the Fluffal Rabbit's effect to add the Fluffal Cat back to your hand. But of course you can't use polymerization again for Fluffal Cat because it's a hard one per turn. You want to wait until next turn. You don't want to use Fluffal Cat if you're not getting its ability, I would say. Unless you absolutely have to. But anyway, so Fluffal Octopus lets you simply recycle a Fluffal or Edgem from your graveyard when it's on a summon. So, and then also has the effect where if it's sent, when it's used as fusion material, it has to be specifically for the fusion summon of a Fright Fur, but that's not really a worry because the only non-Fright Fur you have is, the only non-Fright Fur you have is the Mud Dragon. So yeah, it's not really a problem. So just pretty much don't use it from Mud Dragon and you're good. So this allows you to recycle 2 of your banished monsters, and it doesn't have to necessarily be Fluffals only, so that's kind of cool. And then you just recycle them back to the graveyard. And if those were 2 Fluffal monsters that were fusion summoned properly, you can then maybe it's a little bit easier to get them back to the field with, for example, a Monster Reborn. I believe if your opponent Bombless Trap pulls a fusion, you can still get out of the graveyard later on if you do that and then Monster Reborn it. Because Bombless Trap Pool doesn't negate the summon. It just banishes it on summon. So yeah, it still was properly fusion summoned. I'm almost positive about that. Anyway, this one allows you to special summon itself, and also allow you to recycle an Edgem from your hand or graveyard back to the field. Well, special summon one. It's a hard one per turn, and you do that by returning a different Fluffal to your hand, which is pretty good because polymerization allows future materials from the hand. So that isn't really much of a drawback. It basically gives you an extra material for polymerization, which is pretty nice. Anyway, Edgem Sabers is the next one. It allows you to It basically has the plague spreader effect, where when it's in the graveyard, you place a card on the top of your deck from your hand to special summon it. But instead of is plague spreader zombie a once per duel? I forget. This is a hard once per turn. I forget if plague spreader is a once per duel effect. But I know it has the same effect to special summon itself. Anyway, Fluffal Bear is the next one. This one is basically the searcher for Toy Vendor, which I'll show you in a second, in a little bit. And it also allows you to cycle polymerization simply by attributing it. But it's kind of hard to use. Yeah, you can only use one Fluffal Bear effect per turn anyway. It's kind of hard to use. It's kind of hard to do to do both anyway, because you would have to get it out of the graveyard. But there are ways of getting out of the graveyard. Just remember, each effect is share that same hard once per turn, so you can either use one or the other. But you can't wait until next turn to use the other. But it's still a bit hard, but you can do it if you really need to. Edgems, but pretty much think about which effects you really want to use of it. Anyway, so the next card is Edgem's Scythe, allowing you. This one's kind of cool because this one acts as a quick effect fusion summon. I remember getting this played on me a few times. It's pretty cool. I think the best monster to be brought out on your opponent's turn is probably the. I'm sorry. I got it. Okay. Better now. Okay, so there's a few options you can use with that quick effect fusion summon. Fight for a Tiger allows you to destroy a few cards based on the amount of fusion materials used. Fight for a Commander probably not the best option because it doesn't really have a quick effect. Fight for Sabretooth is kind of good. If you fusion summon on your opponent's turn, you basically get a quick effect special summon. And it can't be destroyed by battle card effects as long as you used 3 or more fusion materials, so that can be kind of good. But probably one of the ones that acts as a quick effect destruction. Which is primarily just either the Fight for a Tiger or Fight for a Cruel Whale. Allows you to destroy a card on both players' field, and it has another quick effect on top of that, which allows you to target a fusion you control, which can include itself, and then it can give either itself or a different fusion's monster a bit of extra attack, equal to half the attack of the other monsters you sent. So yeah, but it can depend on the situation. Maybe your opponent isn't really setting up a board or something. I don't know. I feel like usually it would probably be Fight for a Tiger or a Cruel Whale. But anyway, I'll go on to the next one. So that's pretty cool. Does it have any more effects on top of that? Probably. Oh yeah, and also it protects a fight for a fusion monster from being destroyed by battle or card effect by banishing itself. And then each effect you can use on the same turn, but it's a hard once per turn for each. So yeah, it's kind of like those others that like act as like a one-time barrier for destruction effects. Anyway, the next one is gonna be, which is probably why you don't really need to special summon Sabretooth. It's probably better to either do Tiger or Cruel Whale since it already can protect them. Just in my opinion, it's better to use as disruption and like later on get like a destroy effect. And the cool thing is, if you bring out Cruel Whale, you can actually protect itself from its own destruction if you like choose this as one of the targets, and then you just banish it, because it also works on like if it were to be destroyed by one of your effects. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, Fluffal Dog is the next one. Allowing you to search for an Edgem, Sabers, or Fluffal monster when on its summon. So that's pretty cool. Pretty simple effect, but a good one. And then Edgem Chain. You're probably not going to be attacking with this a lot, but it can be good. Like, it searches for another copy of itself when it declares an attack. But the one you're probably going to be using more often is the send from the hand or field to the graveyard effect to add a Pfeiffer from your deck to your hand, which is basically which is basically any of those like spells or traps that say Pfeiffer, since none of your main deck monsters are gonna say Pfeiffer in their card title. Yeah. Yeah, and then, but if you wanted to, you could technically declare an attack with this, and then use polymerization to then get the other effects, since both can be used on the same turn, but they are both hard once per turns. Anyway, the next one is going to be Edgem Frightful. Actually, so there is one. Looks like there's one Fight for a main deck monster, which is going to be this one, the Edgem Frightful. So this one can be searched off of Edgem Chain. So this one allows you to, but like its effect isn't really all that good, I don't think. It allows you to basically, like gain the attack and defense of an original, of the original attack defense of a fusion monster that's either in your graveyard or that you control. So it's not like terrific, but the fact that it can be searched off of Edgem Chain is kind of cool. But you're probably going to be searching for a spell or trap with Fight Ferns card talent instead. Anyway, the next one is Fluffal Penguin, which allows you to special summon a Fluffal from your hand. And also it's another one of those monsters that have a fusion material effect, and its fusion material effect is going to be, if it's used for the fusion summoner for Frightfur. So just like the octopus, it has to be for a Frightfur. But that shouldn't be a problem most of the time. It allows you to draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. So kind of a worse part of greed, but still pretty good. Especially since you can like send maybe like a toy vendor, since it has I believe it has an effect when sent to a graveyard, or you can choose to send something like Edgem Chain, since it has an effect when it's sent from the hand to the graveyard. So it could actually be good. Anyway, the next one is, so Fluffal Dolphin basically lets you recycle Toy Vendor set to your field, and then it also allows you to mill Fluffal Edgent Sabers from your deck to the graveyard. Allows you to mill one of those. So it has to be specifically Fluffal or Edgent Sabers, but Edgent Sabers is pretty good because of course it has that graveyard effect. And then, do any of the Fluffals have a graveyard effect? I don't think so. No, not really. Not when it's sent from the... So probably the best one is going to be the... You could also do Scythe though to then get that destruction protection. Or you could just send the Saber since it does have that graveyard effect that allows it to special summon itself. And then also it has, just like the other Fluffals, it has a fusion material effect, which allows you to recycle either any of your fusion spells, basically. That's either banished or in the graveyard. And you recycle them into a deck. Yeah, recycle it into a deck. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then you can research it off of different things. And then Hoppy's Feather Duster. I believe a lot of you already know this. It's good for clearing out your opponent's back row. It's especially good when you can go for a game on that same turn, just to make sure that you can get game and your opponent won't disrupt you. But it's good in general to make sure that your stuff sticks. And then polymerization, I feel like 3 would probably be a good amount, but 2 is not terrible either. So it's just a normal fusion spell to get out your monsters. But of course this deck loves polymerization because a lot of their cards are all about the normal poly. Anyway, Monster Reborn's the next one, and this is just an overall good card, allowing you to either bring back one of your more important main deck monsters for further plays, one of your boss monsters, or one of your opponent's boss monsters. So it's good, it's very versatile. And then Fight for Fusion is another fusion spell that can also be searched via the Edgent Chain, so that's pretty good. It's probably a little bit better than polymerization since you can actually use fusion materials from the graveyard, but it does banish them. And it doesn't trigger these Fluffal fusion effects when they're used as fusion materials, since they have to be sent to the graveyard specifically. Next one is going to be Fight for Patchwork, which allows you to either search for an Edgent monster. Oh, it allows you to search for both an Edgent monster and a polymerization. See, I think this is kind of broken because this is just a free +1 for no cost. Except for the fact that it's a hard once per turn, but still, like, that's so good. The only unfortunate thing about this is that if you don't have a polymerization in your deck, you can't activate this card to add an Edgent monster. It has to be both. It can't be one or the other. Or both. It has to be both. Anyway, Fight for Repair allows you to recycle a Fight for Fusion monster in your graveyard back to the extra deck in order to special summon one of your Fluffal or Edging monsters from your graveyard, which is basically all you're playing in the main deck. So basically any of your main deck cards. And then also allows you to banish the card from the graveyard and on a different turn to special summon a Fluffal Legend from your hand. Unless you just send this directly to graveyard. Actually, you can also... Well, there was one that allowed you to mail, I believe. Oh no, it has to be specifically monsters. Okay, never mind. Yeah, because you can only use one fight for one of these effects per turn. So you can't use both in the same turn. And then only one toy vendor. Wow. Usually you would play. So I feel like you would play 3 polymerizations and 3 toy vendors in normal build. But so 1 toy vendor. So this one has a pretty good graveyard effect, allowing you to search for Edgem Chamber Sabers or Fluffal. And it also has the on-field effect, allowing you to discard a card to draw a card and special summon it if it's a Fluffal. Or you discard it if it's not. But it's still pretty good because it allows you to go through your deck a little bit faster. And the really cool thing about Toy Vendor, and I feel like kind of the broken thing about Toy Vendor, is that its graveyard effect is not, its center graveyard effect is not a hard once per turn. It's not anything. So you can just keep sending more Toy Vendors to the graveyard and keep getting searchers of either Edgem Sabers or Fluffal, which is crazy. And then its on-field effect is only a soft once per turn, so if you put more than one on field, you can keep doing that. But I think the more broken part of it is that you can keep using the graveyard effect as long as you can keep saying other copies or even the same copy, but it's probably going to be other copies. Of course, you're only playing one, so it's not as broken. It's better when you're playing more than one, since you can send additional, so it's easier to get its graveyard effect multiple times. It's sent to graveyard effect. Anyway, the next one is Diffusion. And of course seems like I'm going through this a lot faster because, as I said, I'm more familiar with Fluffals. I haven't really played Destiny Heroes, so, but it should be okay. This is why I gave myself plenty of time for each of these. Anyway, let's move on to Diffusion. This allows, so Diffusion was in that last one, so you can either protect your own fusion monster or kind of disrupt your opponent's fusion monster with this card. So that's pretty good. And then Super Polymerization. One thing I wasn't thinking of about Super Polymerization is in the Destiny deck, it's actually not bad. Since you have an Enoch type way of being able to get rid of an opponent's Phoenix Enforcer with this card. And a lot of people are probably going to be playing Phoenix Enforcer. So that could give the Destiny Hero deck an edge over some of these other decks. So yeah. So Super Polymerization, of course I explained in the Destiny Hero deck, it's good to act as disruption, but when you don't, but a lot of these call for specific stuff. Only thing that's generic is the Mud Dragon. So it might be a little bit hard to use, but when you can use it, it can be pretty good. Yeah, a lot of these are really specific. But hey, if you're facing a fellow Fluffal deck, it could be really good for that. And maybe like if you're playing a deck where like that actually does bring out monsters with the same attribute but different types, it can be really good for that as well, since you have Mud Dragon for those. That's really the only generic one, so I don't know how good it is, but there's that. I mean, especially in the Fluffal deck, since I think less people are going to be playing any of the Fluffal decks, just Fluffal cards, just because. I mean, Phoenix Enforcer is good because I guess it's a little bit better and a little bit easier to bring out. I don't know. I forget what Phoenix Enforcer calls for, but yeah, I guess I'll just have to see how easy it is to use this Super Poly to out some of the bigger threats like Phoenix Enforcer and Colossus. It might just come out to whichever loner deck can out those the most consistently. Anyway, the next card is Cosmic Cyclone. Wow. Like again, like this could have probably easily been replaced with a Lightning Storm. It's weird. Like, did Konami think they made the last Luna decks a little too powerful, and so now they're putting in Cosmic Cyclone? I mean, it's kind of good, but like, I feel like Lightning Storm is just a bit stronger most of the time. Anyway, let's move on to Call by the Grave. So this one allows, so I remember this was also in the Destiny Hero deck. So I already explained a little bit about this in the Destiny Hero video, but I'll go through it a little bit again. It basically acts as disruption, allowing you to banish and negate the effects of one of your opponent's monsters, or it can also be used during your turn to maybe negate the effects of a hand trap if your opponent's trying to disrupt you. So yeah, so it's used for some of those purposes. And then Necrofusion probably could have been replaced with polymerization or something, but it allows you to fusion summon a fusion monster by banishing materials from your graveyard, but they have to be face down, so which is kind of bad if you were hoping to use them. So, and then Fight for March, it negates an effect that's specifically targets a Fight for monsters you control. So like if the activating like Geki, you can negate it. So it works on both board wipes and wait, no, it has to specifically target them. So it doesn't work on Regeki, but any effects that targets it works on. And then you can replace it with a different fight for looks like, and it counts as a fusion summon. But you do banish it during your next end phase. So you might want to think about doing that before you do. But hey, like, you basically get a free fusion summon out of that by replacing that one Fight for monster with the other. Most of the time it's going to be replacing one fusion with another. You're probably not going to be like using that alongside Fight for Lloyd, so yeah. Anyway, the next one is Fight for Jar. So it basically acts as another toy vendor, but probably just simply playing playing the actual toy vendor instead would probably be a bit better. It has a bit of a better effect though, I guess. Like, you get to discard a card to draw a card and show it, and then instead of like special summoning it, if it's a Fluffal, you destroy a card on the field if it's an Edgent. And if it's not, you place a card from the hand on the top or bottom of the deck. So even that's kind of worse. Like, if it's not an Edgent, like, I would say like sending it from the hand to the graveyard would probably be better than putting it back in the deck, because you're not really like, I mean, it's because you're not really like, because you kind of just want minus at that point, since like it. Oh wait, no, it can be a different card. So I guess like, so that's recycling. That cycling through the deck is still there. Anyway, and also if it's sent to the graveyard, you get to have the attack of opponent's monster on the field. I still feel like simply having the actual toy vendor is better than this. So maybe like minus that to add that second toy vendor at least. And then definitely I would say minus a Necro Fusion for maybe another polymerization. Or a third copy of, no, probably another polymerization there. Okay, and then the X deck. So Mud Dragon of the Swamp. This was in the Destiny deck as well, so it can come in clutch for super polymerization plays. Or you can also bring out yourself. But you would have to make sure that with the same attribute but different types. So I guess you could, well, it's going to be kind of difficult to bring out yourself. So it's probably better as a super poly target. So maybe that's what they're thinking, like maybe this is supposed to be a super poly target. But they really only have this for super poly. Of course it is a pretty good one though. It allows you to protect whatever attribute you do want to protect by simply chaining this to said attribute, and then it protects those attribute monsters from being targeted. And then the next card is Fight for a Tiger, which I explained a little bit about. But again, like, it's basically like, depending on the amount you use, amount of cards used to fusion summon this, you destroy an equal amount of cards on the field. So if you use 4 total, that's why it says 1 or more. If you simply go with a +1, you get to destroy 2, since you use Edge and Saber as +1 Fluffal, and then more than that if you use more than 1. So you might want to think about how many you want to use depending on how many cards on your opponent's side of the field. But like, also, like, the more you use, the harder it can be to make other kind of fusion plays. So this one is kind of gotta be strategic with this card. And also has a little bit of an effect where it gives a little bit of an attack boost based on the amount of Fluffals and Fight for, and Fight for monsters you control, including yourself. And then you can only control one of this specific fusion. Anyway, Fight for Chimera says that it has to be fusion summon, which is probably how you're going to be bringing out these things anyway. But what that does mean is you can't Monster Reborn out later on. So there's that. And then, so this one has the effect that when it battles, your opponent can't activate card effects until the end of the damage step, kind of like the Ancient Gears. And when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your field. So yeah, that's kind of good. But its attack is halved. And then also it gains more attack the more monsters you control that were owned by your opponent. So basically, the more monsters that it steals, the more it grows in attack. And then Fight for Sabretooth is the next one, allowing you to special summon a Fight for. Oh, it's specifically a Fight for. So most of the time, it's going to be another one of your other fusion guys. So you could. Oh wait, no. This is specifically if it's fusion summon. Never mind. It's still pretty good. It allows you to get out another one of your Fifers. It can even bring another one of itself out, but it won't be able to get its effect again. And then it requires. So this one requires Edgem Sabers plus one or more Fluffals. This one requires 3 Fifers. Oh, so this one's kind of hard to bring out since you could technically, at least you have Fightful Lloyd that you can use as one of the materials, but you don't have that. So most of the time you'll probably be using fusion materials as materials to bring this out. So that can be kind of difficult. But there are those being able to banish them from the graveyard as fusion materials. So it's still kind of difficult to bring this guy out. And then Fight for Saber-type Tooth isn't as bad to bring out. It just requires one, but it has to be specifically the Fight for Fusion. So you can't use the Fight for Lloyd. That's in your main deck. And then this also calls for, you can use more than one Fluffal and or Edgem monsters. But since it doesn't really grow, and then you probably want to use at least 2 Fluffals and or Fluffal and an Edgem monster. You probably want to make sure you get this out with 3 materials so that's not able to be destroyed by battle card effects. And then it also gives a little bit of a boost to fight for monsters. Anyway, the next card is Fight for Kraken, which simply calls for an Edgem monster plus a Fluffal monster. So pretty simple materials right there. And then it doesn't, its effect to put a monster your opponent controls into graveyard, that's not a destruction effect, so it can bypass that. Destruction immunity abilities, but it can't bypass targeting immunities. So, but it's still pretty good. But if you do activate that effect, you can't attack directly with it. It can make a second attack during each battle phase. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then if you try attacking directly with this first before using the ability, you can't because of the way it's worded. So no matter how you look at it, you're going to have to bypass an attack directly. But it could still be worth it to get rid of a monster. That's most of the time more worth it. Like, that's not really much of a cost if like your opponent has a really annoying monster you need to get rid of. And then if it's not that annoying, you can always just destroy it at battle, and then be able to get like maybe a direct attack in afterwards. And then this switches its battle position after it attacks at the end of the battle phase. So yeah, that's pretty good because it has a lot of defense. So that's not a bad effect either. And then Fight for Daredevil allows you to do a little bit of burn damage when it destroys an opponent's monster at battle. And if it's destroyed, by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect. When it's on, as long as it was on your field, you can inflict a little bit more burn damage depending on the amount of frightful monsters in your graveyard, which can include the frightful Lloyd. So I don't know. I feel like that's not as good of ability. Like, I mean, the burn can be pretty nice, but maybe like -1 Daredevil I would do to maybe put in just like another super polymerization target. And then fight for a cruel whale allows you to on its fusion summon, you get to destroy a card on both players' fields. So that can be any card, so that's pretty nice. And then also has the quick effect, which as I said, it basically allows you to either change your attack of one of your fusion monsters, including itself, to the original attack, to the half the original attack of whichever fusion monster you sent from your extra deck to the graveyard using its effect. And then that can be good because it also sets up more frightfuls for getting out Chimera a little bit easier later on, or any of the other monsters that call for a frightful. You can maybe like send to the graveyard, and then you could use frightful fusion to banish that frightful that you sent along with a few other edge imps or Fluffals to be able to bring out Sabretooth then, so that can be good. Or it can well, if you send a fusion straight to the graveyard, you won't be able to special summon that fusion later on via Sabretooth, since it wasn't fusion summoned properly first. And then the last one is Dangerous Frightful Nightmare, allowing you to, it gives itself, so it calls for an edge imp monster plus 2 Fluffal monsters, so not too hard to bring out, and it gives itself a little bit of an attack boost depending on the amount of fairy and fiends in your graveyard. It's during your turn only, so it loses that attack boost during your opponent's turn. And when it destroys a monster by battle, as long as it was fusion summoned, so it doesn't have the effect if it was special summoned via Monster Reborn or Sabretooth. But when it destroys a monster by battle, it allows you to mill a fight for Fluffal and or edge imp from your deck to the graveyard equal to the original level of the destroyed monster, which can be pretty good. So the levels, looks like there's a lot of okay, so there's varying levels, so you should be able to have a target every time. And then when your opponent activates a card effect that targets this card on the field, it's a quick effect. You get to banish or fight for a monster from your extra deck, so that's not a bad cost to negate that effect. So yeah, so that one's not too bad either. So, okay, so now I'll move on to more suggestions of how I would improve this deck. I would probably get rid of, let's see, yeah, as I said, probably the Necrofusion, get rid of that for another polymerization, just because polymerization is searchable in this deck. Or maybe you don't need that, and then I would just replace both Necrofusion and Frightful Jaws for 2 more copies of Toy Vendor, because maybe 2 polymerization is actually good enough, since you can also recycle it pretty easily from your graveyard as well. maybe even -1 Fluffal fusion for third cop polymerization, or probably minus the D fusion for a third copy of polymerization. So anything like that. And then of course the minus Cosmic Cyclone for Lightning Storm. And then of the fusion monsters, probably 2 tigers are pretty good, 2 cruel whales probably also pretty good. Probably minus at least 1 chimera for another super poly target. And then maybe minus the Sabertooth for another super poly target. And then probably minus a Daredevil for another super poly target. So now you have 3 extra super poly targets. That should be pretty good. And then maybe even -1 Dangerous Fight for a Nightmare for a 4th new super poly target. So, for example. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, this look at the Fluffal Fluffal deck, loner deck. If you did enjoy it, please like, share, and subscribe, and considering that notification bell for at least weekly content of the Let's Plays. This daily content only really happens when there's a festival, because I need to get through these before time expires, of course. So anyway, I hope for the rest of you who want to stick around, I'll be doing 10 more packs of the Synchro festival packs. Okay, so I'll be doing that right now. So, and then I'll be seeing the rest of you who aren't sticking around in the next episode of the Loner Deck Battles series. Okay. So 10 more Synchro packs. So here we go. So, and then after I get through these packs, I'll show you the cards that could have been, the other cards that could have been pulled out of these Synchro reward packs. So 2 more Salvage Warriors, so you can look at those. So those are duplicates, but you can still look at those. Again, I don't think it's really going to be played because you have to tribute summon it to get its effect, and that's kind of slow. So probably one of the worst warrior monsters. Star Changer. It could be kind of good to manipulate for manipulating levels, but probably won't be played all that much. There's, like, you can definitely find other ways of being able to, like, synchro summon a little bit easier. And there's, like, sometimes, like, even ways of, like, manipulating levels all on its own. Like, it doesn't even need that spell. It could be good, though. But, like, a spell that just simply manipulates levels is probably not that great. Anyway, here's the Over Limit also, so that one's new. So that's cool. Yeah. So next pack. So I got Explosive Magicians, that's new, and then Over Limit. So this one's pretty good for a spell counter deck. But there's probably better ones to play. But maybe. Here's the next pack. Ooh, I got another. So now I have 3 anti-magic heroes, and I believe this is a 3rd copy of Obsidian Hawk Joe. So there's those 2. Next pack. Okay. So there's that. And then there's the over limit. Actually, I think I'm gonna skip because I'm just a little bit, because there's something I really need to do. So I'm just gonna skip to the end here. I'm sorry, but there's just something I really need to do. So I just decided to skip to the end, but I will still show all of the cards. So here's all the cards that I opened. So it looks like, I think that's my first copy of the foil for Signal Warrior. Anti-Magic Arrows, Iron Chain Dragon, which is pretty good for an Iron Chain deck, but Iron Chain just aren't very good because there's just not a lot of Iron Chain, like good Iron Chain support. Maybe in the future they'll be better. So it looks like it got 3 Explosive Magicians, wow. 3 over limits. Looks like it got an Attack Gainer, and then two more Salvage Warriors. Got Synchro Gift. 2 Synchro Gifts, and then a foil Star Changer, and Synchro Barrier. Let's see. So now I own 3 of him now. 6 of him. 4 Anti-Magic Arrows, 1 of the Iron Chain Dragon, 3 Explosive Magicians, 3 over limits, 3 Attack Gainers, 3 Salvage Warriors, 2 Synchro Gifts, 2 Star Changers, and 5 Synchro Bears. Wow. Okay. So I think my favorite card out of the pack opening was, I don't know. I'm not going to say Anti-Magic Arrows again. I guess Overlimit, since it can be used in kind of a few main normal monster decks. But I don't know. I guess I'll do one based on art. I think the art of Iron Chain Dragon is at least a little cool. Yeah, so I guess I'll go for that, because the art does look pretty cool on the Iron Chain Dragon. So here's the other. Oh, I forgot it disappears. Oh well, you can always you can probably look it up online if you really want to know what all of is available in those Synchro reward packs. But anyway, I'll be taking off now. I hope you enjoyed that pack opening video, for those of you who stayed for that. And if you did, please let me know which one was your favorite card. Bye.